Hi, this is Jake Burns from Stiff Little Fingers, and you're listening to Collision on Voice FM.
Jake,
Yes.
it's Kat. How are you?
Hello, Kat. I'm fine. How's yourself?
I'm pretty good. We actually had a chat 2 years ago when you were coming down to Soundwave.
Cool.
Yeah. Can I ask then, what have you been doing in the last 2 years? Because you had just released your 10th studio album then.
Well, actually, I think when I spoke to you, we probably were in the studio just finishing it.
Actually.
So, yeah, it came out around June or so in 2014. And basically, to be honest with you, Kat, we've been on the road ever since, really, just kind of promoting it worldwide. I think, we finished in the studio, I think, around February 6th or something that year. And by February 14th, I was flying out to New Zealand and didn't get home till, I think, like late April, early May or something. So, and that only took up, like, Australia, Japan, and the UK. We then had to do Europe, America. I think we've done America twice since then. And it's, so it's been, and Europe twice now, I think of it. Blimey. Yeah, I got a lot of air miles. That's basically what we've been doing is touring, and this is kind of the last part of that. We've got a UK tour that starts next week, and literally right following on from that, we come straight out to you guys. So I come home, and I think apart from some festivals and stuff, they've tried to leave me as free as possible so I can basically start work on writing the next one.
Awesome. It's good to hear you're actually going to start working on another one. Then this Australian tour is part of that process for the last album still.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, when we came across, obviously, like you said, we came over and did the Soundwave things, and that's just such a huge undertaking that a festival the size of that, you don't get to play anything like your full set. You get to play maybe 30-45 minutes, something like that, which doesn't even begin to cover what we would normally do in a live show. So it was great to get the chance to come back and actually play our own show. This time we get to play for like 90 minutes and try and hit as much of the band's career as possible. So it means we can actually play 3 or 4 songs from the newest record, but also about the same from as many of the others as we can hit. It's kind of difficult because we're not the sort of band that has like a lot of chart hits we can draw on. So you've basically got to base the live set around what you think are the songs people are going to want to hear, and hope we get it right.
Yeah. We'll ask them. What do you want to hear?
Well, we did that before, but the trouble is, it's like everybody in the world has a different idea of what the set list should be, so you end up with a set list that's like 100 songs long, and you think, even Bruce Springsteen ain't going to play for that long,
Oh, I'm sure we can find you a spare room in Australia so you can stay here long enough.
Yeah, right.
But this is actually going to be your first national tour, your first headlining national tour of Australia.
Yes, it is. I mean, we came across, I think, in either 2001, 2002, but we only played in Sydney and Melbourne. So this is the first chance to get out and about around the country. And I mean, it really is round the country. I mean, you hug the coast over there with regards to where the cities are. So yeah, I mean, it's we're very much looking forward to it. Particularly, like I said, having just very briefly been in those towns on the Soundwave thing to do what we do. Well, we think to do what we do best, and show people what we're actually capable of is something we're very much looking forward to.
Awesome. And you guys, you've been going for 38 years, and it sounds like you're just getting busier.
Yeah, I think actually come April it's 39, I think. Yeah, I think next year's the 40th anniversary. Dear God, 40 years. Oh, well, never mind.
Well, that's another good excuse to tour the world. It's your 40th year anniversary.
Yeah, you're starting to sound like my manager. It's like, I'll never get this record written. It's like, well, it's your 40th anniversary. You should go back on tour again.
Sorry.
Well, that's okay.
Someone's got to be on the management side, don't they?
Absolutely.
But you guys, you're just getting busier, aren't you, at the moment?
It does seem to be going very well, and that's very gratifying from our point of view. It's something that we've only really become aware of, I think, actually since we put the record out, because a lot of bands, particularly when you've been doing it the length of time we have and at the level we have, there's a danger that you kind of become a nostalgia act, and you kind of you sort of trade on past glories. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, if you've got a strong enough back catalogue, then why shouldn't you play it? But from a songwriter's point of view, and from the band's point of view, it's always nice to feel that you're moving forward and doing something new. But of course, that comes with there's always the nervousness that you're going to put it out and people aren't going to like it, or nobody's going to be interested. And I mean, we were blown away. Particularly, we did the album through a pledge music campaign, and we raised the money for it very, very quickly. I'm sure I talked about this with you the last time we spoke, but the reaction to it was amazing. I mean, we got phenomenal reviews for it. It got us we got our first number one album in Britain out of it, which we'd never had before. And, you know, we were absolutely astonished. I mean, you almost sort of pinch yourself and you sort of look at the other guys and go, are we in the same band? Is this the right band?
Yeah. And no, we didn't actually discuss the fact you'd done a crowdfunding campaign last time, but that's good to know. I mean, you're actually using the tools that are available in the industry now.
Yeah, and you know that came about. You know, we'd been allied with EMI Records for a very, very long time, and we went back to them and basically said, you know, because it was 10 years since our previous studio album for one reason or another, and you know, obviously the people that worked at the record company, the people we knew had all left. You know, so we kind of went back. It was I don't know if you remember us, and people were kind of, oh yeah, I remember you guys. What can we do for you? I said, well, we were on the label. We're not sure if we're still on the label, but you know, we're thinking of making another record. And you know, the more we spoke with them, they were kind of asking, well, what do you think we can do for you? And it came about in our conversations that realistically, the reason that, you know, most bands wanted record deals back in the day when we started was to get your records into record shops and to raise your profile so people knew who you were. And as was pointed out to us, well, basically thanks to the rise of the internet, there aren't many record stores anymore. I mean, most of the major chains have gone out of business. I mean, now, luckily, there are more and more coming back, but they're specialist stores rather than, you know, Tower Records or whatever. And, you know, so basically they kind of made us think, they basically said, you know, you're better off doing it on your own. And that kind of, you know, gave us pause for thought. And it was our management who'd come up with the crowdfunding idea because, you know, it's something we'd never done before. And they said, you know, look, we can go to EMI, and if they say no, we can then go to Warner's or we can go to Sony. We can just keep going until somebody says yes. But you know, if you go to your own audience and say, we're thinking of making a record, if they say no, you're kind of screwed, really. So we were like, oh, yeah, there is that. But we went to the Pledge Music people and said, you know, how does this work? And they said, well, you put a campaign up. It usually runs for about 3 months, and you raise the money you feel you need to make the record. So, okay. So we did that, and we said, well, we'll give it 3 months because we want to give it its best chance to do that. And we'd actually reached the target in 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
So we were astonished at that.
So you got a lot more than you actually aimed for.
Yeah, we did, which was great because it meant we could actually make a better record. You know, it meant, you know, you weren't keeping one eye on the clock all the time. You know, it's like if somebody had an idea in the studio, it wasn't a case of, well, yeah, it's not a bad idea, but we really haven't got the time to investigate it because we're on a budget here. You know, then you were able to say, that's not a bad idea, run with it, see what comes out of it, you know. So it freed us up to actually make, I think, a better record in the end, you know. And like I said, we've just gone down the crowdfunding road again because, like I said, the tour starts next week. And part of it, we're playing in Glasgow on St. Patrick's Night in the Barrowland Ballroom, which is a really iconic venue in the United Kingdom. And this will be our 25th St. Patrick's Night in a row of playing there. So we decided we wanted to document that because it's, you know, that's quite a landmark. And we said, wouldn't it be great if we could actually film it, record it? And again, we launched a pledge campaign, and again, within a day, the audience had raised the money. So obviously they agreed with us that it would be a good idea to film it and record it, you know.
Yeah. Well, what I actually do want to ask, because you did start out in Belfast in 1977 when the IRA were, you know, pretty much at full tilt and that, which inspired your music, very punk-based and rebellious. But what inspires your writing nowadays?
Well, basically then, you know, all we were doing was reflecting what was happening around us and reacting to it. And realistically, that hasn't changed throughout my entire career. I mean, that's still the basis of spurring me into wanting to write a song. It's just that, you know, the palette that I use has gotten slightly wider. You know, then all I knew of the world was Northern Ireland. You know, up to that stage, I hadn't lived anywhere. I hadn't really travelled anywhere. Now, of course, you know, I'm not much older, and I nearly said wiser. I'm not sure that I am any wiser, but I'm not much older. And obviously, I've seen a lot more of the world, and it still disappoints me in a lot of ways. So, you know, those are things that I find there's no shortage of material to write about, that's for sure, you know. So, you know, the last album contained the usual sort of disappointment at politicians, which, again, they're a never-ending source of disappointment, I think, to most of us. There are songs in there about the institutionalized child abuse within the church. There are songs about sort of almost government-approved racism that's sort of, casually sort of dropped about in newspapers and in news reports, all of which are kind of run by big businesses and or the government anyway these days. So it's like, I don't want to come across as some sort of, conspiracy theorist crackpot. I mean, these are all things that I've seen with my own eyes, and I know things that upset and affect other people. The fact that the banks went bust and loads of people lost their mortgages and homes. I mean, myself, my wife lost her job, and we had to move house because we couldn't afford where we were living before anymore, because, we'd bought that based on 2 salaries, and suddenly there was just one, and that was mine. And it's not a particularly, it's not a steady salary, it's not steady income. You can't really go to a bank and they say, how much do you make a month? And I was like, well, it depends whether I work that month or not. So, I think I said I knew I wasn't the only one in that boat either. So, like I said, sadly, there's no shortage of stuff to write about,
Exactly. But what you were saying about how the world disappoints you and that now, there must be a little bit of irony in that when you do go back to Belfast, because Belfast, I mean, it's got its political issues like everywhere else, but it's certainly nothing like it was when you grew up there.
No, that's for sure. I mean, it is much, much better than it ever was. That you're absolutely correct. I mean, and that's only a good thing. But the bottom line is that the underlying tensions are still there. But that's all they are now. People don't get shot, they don't get blown up, and that's definitely progress from the Northern Ireland I grew up in. And it's great to see. And again, it's something that the band have always stood up for. And I mean, I mentioned the crowdfunding campaigns, and part of that, we gave 5% of the money raised over the target on both campaigns, in fact, now. And we did some fundraising outside and inside all our recent Northern Irish shows. And that money went to a thing called the Integrated Education Fund. The idea behind that is, obviously, no child is born with inherent either racism or sectarianism as part of their makeup. It's something that's taught to them. And the thing that was kind of almost one of the things that was at the root of the problem in Northern Ireland was that you were always told to view people from the other community as different from you in some way. That was actually elongated and exacerbated by the fact that there were two types of school you could go to. You either went to state schools, which were inherently Protestant, or you went to Catholic schools, and neither of the two would mix. The whole point of the Integrated Education Fund is to fund schools so that children from both sides of the community actually go to school together. And they realise that they don't have 3 heads because they live in a different part of town or they go to a different church on Sunday, if they even go to church. And, so that particularly that element of the unknown and the element of mistrust that breeds, and that's only a good thing for the province's future.
Yeah, and travelling the world as you do and coming from where you came from and seeing the trouble, you must see so many issues in so many countries that don't exist outside of that country too.
Of course, and the thing is, they all look so depressingly similar to what I grew up with, I mean, a lot of them are either religion-based. I mean, dear God, did I actually say dear God? You know what I mean? I mean, it's, a lot of them are depressingly religion-based or they're race-based or whatever. And it's basically, the more I see, like I said, obviously, like I said earlier, I used the word it disappoints me, and it does. But the more I see and the more you talk to people, really the more you realize we all have much more in common than we have that divides us. And it just astonishes me that people can't see it. I think people can't see it, basically because those that are in power, it behoves them to actually keep you frightened and keep you in your place. And obviously, if more people realise that we have more in common than we have that divides us, then they wouldn't be frightened, they wouldn't be afraid, and they'd actually band together. And some of these jackasses that are in power might find themselves out on their backsides,
And listening to you talk, it's that social voice that you've had right from the start that's obviously not only kept your fans around, but I think one of the first things I said to you in the last interview was that a 19-year-old kid on my Facebook had gotten really excited that I was going to be interviewing you. So you've got a whole new generation of fans coming on board.
Yeah, and that's very flattering. I mean, at first we put it down to it was fans of bands like Green Day or whatever who had mentioned us as an inspiration. But that only goes so far. Once people might come and see you because they're fans of those bands just to see what you're like, but they're only going to stay if they like what you do as well. So it is gratifying that somebody, like you said, of 19 years old finds something of worth in what we do, because I'm not sure at 19 I would have been that interested in going to see a nearly 60-year-old guy on a stage. But of course, as I got older, I was like kicking myself that I didn't go and see those guys then, because of course they've passed on now, and I'm like, damn it, I could have actually gone to see these people play and I didn't. But that's a personal regret, just.
Yeah, and you were caught up in starting your own thing back then anyway, so...
Well, yeah. That was, of course, the other thing.
Well, I'll get back to the tour. You are hitting Australia. You start in Perth, as you said, on the 29th of March, and then you're off to Adelaide on the 30th and Melbourne at 170 Russell on the 31st. Sydney on the 1st of April and Brisbane on the 2nd of April, and it is lucky you're coming a couple of days early because you don't get a day off while you're here. No,
we don't. It's get there, keep working, that's you done, which is a shame because it's a long way to go to not get any time to yourself to actually see the place. But unfortunately, that's kind of the reality of touring these days. Everything's on a very tight budget, so it's a case of get in, do it, get home again, really.
Yeah. Well, from what you have seen of Australia, what do you look forward to most when you do come back here? Have you got a favourite snack or a favourite bar or something?
Actually, the people. I mean, I know it's almost a cliche that Australians are incredibly welcoming folk, but you really are. We've had so much fun both times we've been across, and we've met some wonderful people. And it's like, for example, just to give you an idea, when we did the Soundwave thing, there was a lot of confusion as to whether we were going to get the chance to play a side show on our own in Sydney. And at first we thought we were, and then it turned out logistically it just wasn't possible, so we couldn't do it. But of course, word had gotten out that we might be doing it, and some people have actually flown in on the possibility. And anyway, there was a lot of disappointment expressed through the band's Facebook page that we wouldn't be able to do it, and particularly from guys who someone's flown from Tasmania or whatever, and we're like, so well, I'm here now, and somebody actually said, well, I'm here now, the least you could do is buy me a drink. And I thought, yeah, why not? So we actually arranged to meet this guy, and we announced it on Facebook, and I think about 10 or 12 guys turned up in this bar, and myself, and at various points during the day, all of the band were there. And we just basically hung out with these guys in the bar. And then, the idea was turn up, have a drink with them, leave. But we all got on so well, I think, we almost had to be carried out of the place later in the evening. It was fantastic. It turned out to be a great day.
Awesome. Well, I do hope you get time to have at least one evening like that before you leave the country again.
So do I. I really do. It just means I get up with a bad head the next morning, that's all.
Yeah. And your Facebook page, facebook.com/stifflittlefingers.
That's the one.
And your website is slf.rocks.
That's it.
Do you know, actually, have you got a band doing the full tour with you, or?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just local supports each evening.
Awesome. So people can keep an eye out on Facebook on Stiff Little Fingers and that, or on Metropolis Touring for when those supports are announced. And it is late March and early April that you will be in the country. And the album No Going Back is still available. Grab it now.
Yes.
And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for calling. I really appreciate it.
And I look forward to seeing you in March, April.
See you soon.
Bye.
Take care. Bye now.